Hello, and welcome back to another Chris McPherson Show Daily Dose. We are recapping day two of the test, the fifth test of the Ashes, as Australia turned the lever back in their own favour and take the advantage at the close of play after day one was abandoned a little short, only 45 overs played. England certainly had the upper hand, 3 wickets down, and Joe Root and Harry Brook combined and got back together to get things started for the Aussies. We are, as you can see, recording from the vehicle on the close of play after the day and getting things rolling for you before we hit the road away from the SCG. But of course, if you haven't before, make sure to hit like on the video, hit subscribe as well, and follow along on the channel. Plenty more content coming your way. Plenty more cricket, the Big Bash, the Under-19s World Cup is coming, the T20 World Cup. We've got some basketball, soccer, and tennis. It's all happening, and plenty more. You can follow along on our social media channels too, at The Chris Mack Show on Instagram, X, Facebook, and TikTok. You can find us on all of those with content coming in different forms and shapes across them. But let's get into the test. And Harry Brook and Joe Root resumed, both shy of 100. It looked like the way they batted on day one, they were certain to go on day two and find their way to a century. But it wasn't to be for Harry Brook. He departed in the 80s. The commentators cursed Struck after Adam Gilchrist gave him a big rap and talked about the fact that maybe he was going to get there for the first time on Aussie soil. Unfortunately, he didn't get there, but Joe Root formed the backbone of their innings, going on to go well past 150 and help England set a total that, well, probably short of what they would have been dreaming of overnight, looked somewhat competitive. 384, they were probably hoping to get somewhere in the 450 to 500 to be really there. For Australia, after a slow start as the English got on with it, they probably would have thought 384 wasn't the worst. They would have loved to have kept it down to sort of the 320 to 330, but it certainly set a competitive chase for the first innings and for them to grab the advantage. That was the tea break after England lost 4 for 9 to collapse and fall in a heap, including Joe Root trying to get going and trying to accelerate things and getting holed out on a court and bowled. So there was some wonderful cricket from Joe Root. I think it just goes to show, he pulled equal with Ricky Ponting third on the all-time centuries list in Test cricket. He continues to build his record. He's now within 2,000 runs of Sachin Tendulkar at the top of the all-time Test run scorers leaderboard. And realistically, if he continued this sort of form, it's just up to how long he wants to play, whether or not he passes Tendulkar or not. So it'll certainly be something to watch, not only in the second innings here, but over the next probably 2 to 3 years, depending on when Joe Root tries to pull up stumps or decides to pull up stumps. You would certainly think that he'll play through to the next Ashes, which gives him at least 18 months, but we will wait and see what he decides to do. He could well be within striking distance come the end of the calendar year of 2027 and might decide to go on for that, despite knowing that personal records are not necessarily his focus, forte, or primary goal out of his career. But again, it might be incentive enough, especially if the English win that home Ashes, for him to then focus on coming back here to Australia in 4 years' time. Which, while he would be advanced in age, if he can keep, a modicum of the form that he's in, that would certainly be a feasible and reasonable outcome. The Aussies, they got to work. Jake Weatherald had a chance early on, and it looked like he was going to settle from that and capitalise and go on with it. He and Travis Head got off to a flurry of a start, and it was looking really, really strong and positive for the Aussies. It was looking like it was going to be a good opportunity for them to build what they could do, and they continued on until Weatherald was trapped in front again. I'm really unsure as to why he decided to review this, but he did. And it was a situation where he walked down the pitch and it looked odd because if he'd hit it, you'd think he would have known that he'd hit it and would have just moved straight away to review. But he went down, had a chat with Travis Head, who was flying at that point, and they sent it upstairs to no avail. Yes, it was an umpire's call, but it looked plumb, it looked clear. The call from Chris Gaffney, for mine, was pretty straightforward, and most good umpires would have made that call. Certainly would have expected that would be the case. And that had the Aussies at 1 for 57 at almost a run of ball. They weren't mucking about. Weatherald departed for 21. Marnus Labuschagne came out and he looked like he was going to be the anchor to Travis Head's accelerator, and they were working quite well together. Marnus did play a couple of interesting shots, and eventually it was an interesting shot that got him out. Caught in a slip cordon by Bethel off the bowling of Stokes. Stokes got his second wicket, and that was just post a confrontation between Stokes and the Aussies. So Ben Stokes will claim undoubtedly the moral victory on that one, as Marnus Labuschagne departed for 48, just shy of a half century, and he's probably someone that's flown a little under the radar in terms of his performance in this series. I think he's probably been left a little short of where he should be. And the fact that the Aussies have retained the Ashes and claimed the urn will probably, I guess, distract from his not necessarily underperformance, but he hasn't wowed us the way we thought he might based on the domestic form that he'd shown at the start of this season after he'd been sent back to work on his game. And then the big question was, as he fell, would Travis Head pick up in this extended session a century, or would that be a bygone and it was coming down to a tight piece, and then it was who was going to come out and bat with him? Would Steve Smith come out? Would they send out a night watch? They sent out Michael Neser. He came out, did a solid job. Interesting bowling choices, especially from Tongue. He's bowling some short deliveries to Neser. I would have thought that he'd be trying to just, pitch it up. If they miss, the batsman being Neser, then he would hit, but that wasn't the case. Head worked a few around, kept his strike rate going better than a run of ball, but it was clear he wasn't going to quite get to that century. He got into the 90s, 91 from 87, a phenomenal knock, and it got that deficit down to 218, which if you had offered the Aussies that, even at the innings break, I think they would have well and truly taken it. They used the extra bit of play as well as the extra bit this morning, so they did get through, over 90 overs in the day's play, which was great, but only just. And that goes to speak to the slow over rates that we are seeing in these test matches. So, look, certainly I think it's advantage Australia from here. I still think the draw is a massive chance, as Clem talked about in the game, the pre-test preview. But I want to take my hat off to Michael Neser, 4 for 60 from his bowling. Stark got 2, Boland 2, Green and Labuschagne 1. The wicket Marnus Labuschagne got, I'm sure he'll be hyping it up, but it was absolute trollop, the delivery. And I don't know what he was doing, but I don't know what Jamie Smith was doing. But there were some pretty ordinary wickets that fell. We had guys trying to late cut balls that weren't there to late cut. In this game as well, and just guys playing shots both sides that questionable. I don't know how Jake Weatherald will, how much longer his opportunities will extend. I guess the fact that no one's knocking down the door in Shield will probably help him. But we now head into day 3. This looks like this test will at least go to day 4, if not day 5 now, a little bit thanks to that rain and a little bit thanks to the pitch. It'll be interesting to see how much more the pitch continues to favour the batters and at what point it turns and starts to break up a little, as we know is likely at the SCG and certainly history. And then whether Australia in their second innings will come to regret not having a spinner, or whether or not they'll just continue to rely on the part-timers, Travis Head. Will Marnus turn to some spin? Bo Webster, we saw him bowl a little bit of off-spin, which it wasn't surprising. It was interesting to say the least. So Steve Smith obviously not all that prepared to bowl himself. But I think for Australia, they need to absolutely put the foot on the throat. They need to go at a good clip tomorrow. It's going to take them at least, even at 5 plus and over, it's going to take them at least another 40 overs. So they're going to have to bat probably all of day 3 and into day 4 if they want to really grab the ascendancy in this test and minimise their need to bat in the 5th innings, the 4th innings on the 5th day, I should say. 5th innings, that's not going to be happening. But for mine, Australia need to go on here. They need to turn this into a probably 150 to 200 run advantage minimum. I think they'll be targeting 600. If they can do that over the next day and a half, declare midway through day 4, or be all out early to midway through day 4 with a 200 run lead or so, and then aim. Hopefully the pitch is starting to pull apart by that point, and aim to get through and really challenge the English and maybe get a bit of a run on in the wickets. We know that there's some collapses in this English team, as there has been in the Aussies, to be fair. But that's going to be the focus for day 3. It's going to be interesting in terms of how it all shapes up. A lot will fall on the shoulders of obviously Travis Head and how he goes on with this. Can he go on to a big score? That'll be a big question for him as well. Obviously, we know he's got the propensity to score big. He's got the propensity to get some really impressive scores. But does he go on and does he maybe beat his high score? He's more than halfway there. He's at 91 not out. 175 is his high score. So we shall wait and see what comes of that and how he goes in that situation. It's going to be an interesting day 3. Sydney, the SCG. We saw the clouds come over again today. What does the weather dish up for the 3rd day's play? There is supposedly some rain about tonight, and then just light cloud cover clearing to sun. So the English will want to capitalise on that in the first session tomorrow if they can get a little bit of cloud cover at the SCG and grab some wickets. But really excited to see what comes of day 3. The Aussies on top, but as I said, I think the draw is some massive value, some opportunity there. I'm certainly sniffing about it and getting some prices on it. It was out to 675 at the innings break and took a little bit of that. We'll see what it comes to after this. It's certainly shortened in, as have the Aussies, and England aren't behind the game, I think it's fair to say. But as always, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe on the video. I have a bit more of a polished and formal video for you tomorrow after day 3. But until then, make sure to stay tuned to your home of the Black and White of Sport. No grey opinions here. A big thanks for tuning into the Chris McPherson Show.